Ja, welkom bij nog een aflevering bij de Journal du Senhor Passion. Het was even een tijdje afwezig, zeker met deze coronaperiode. De helft van mijn inkomen is weggevallen. Periode van stilstaan, veel reflectie. En ik had al nogal wat in de garage staan aan opnames. En mijn podcast tot zover heeft me veel inzichten gegeven in wat ik wel leuk vind, wat ik niet leuk vind. Waarover ik graag praat. Waarover niet, vooral dat ook. Het is tijd, man. Net als nu. Weet je, ik neem op overdag. Waarschijnlijk hoor je achtergrondgeluiden, want ik zit nu nog bij mijn oma. Ze is op dit moment tv aan het kijken. En een van de dingen die voor mij een belemmering waren, was opname. Weet je, of ik was niet altijd gemotiveerd. Ik kon op werk opnemen. Maar voelde ik me vermoeid na werk. Dan wilde ik gewoon aan het sporten gaan. Nu dat de gyms waren gesloten. Ja, ik had steeds moeite met transities. Weet je, ik had mijn leven zo opgebouwd dat ik had triggers voor mezelf ingebouwd. Weet je, tas inpakken, na werk, gelijk de gym in. Weet je, het stukje fietsen zorgt voor frisse lucht. Zorgt dat ik weer gemotiveerd aan het werk ging. Maar goed, het is allemaal weggevallen. En ik heb dus echt tijd gehad om na te denken van wat is nou echt dat ding wat ik leuk vind om te doen. Het kleinst mogelijk, wat niet meer uitmaakt waar ik zit met mijn energie. En dat is de camera inspreken. Zodra die camera aangaat, ik voel gewoon, happy. Ik ben ook begonnen met een vlog. Staat nog niet online. Het is echt gewoon een vlog voor mezelf, voor mijn familie. Documentatie om bij te houden. Ondanks alles, veel goede dingen gebeurd ook de afgelopen tijd. Zoals ik zei, zelfreflectie. Voor deze coronaperiode, of net erin, had ik al een paar interviews staan met Zoom. Zoals je hoorde bij mijn podcast, was het nogal heel ongestructureerd. En ging ik gewoon het gesprek aan met mensen. Ik ben eruit gekomen voor mezelf dat ik me gewoon heel graag wil focussen op erotische ervaringen van mensen. Vragen naar hun ervaring met spiritualiteit en daar structuur in gaan brengen. Ik merk dat ik daarin ook gewoon veel vragen heb voor mezelf. Ik ben voor mezelf ook eeuwig student. En ik weet dat ik voor mezelf niet het rol ga innemen van ik weet het allemaal al. Ik ben niet simpelweg een reis aan het maken samen met jou waar ik mijn ervaring deel. En waar ik het mogelijk ga maken om een safe en play space te maken voor anderen. Om hun ervaringen te delen. Om hunzelf te omarmen en weet je, connecten met like-minded people. Weet je, een community vorm van inclusiviteit. Mensen die er niet mee bekend zijn. Zo had ik ook moeite met de onderwerpen die ik aankaartte. En al die andere dingen die ik leuk vind om te bekijken. Bepaalde lectures. En ik heb zoiets van mezelf van maar weet je, wie bepaalt nou voor mij dat ik het er niet over mag hebben? Weet je, in gesprekken ben ik altijd diegene die toch bruggetjes weet te bouwen. Analogieën tussen voorbeelden en abstracte concepten. Ja, dat kan ik dus ook met mijn podcast. Ik hoef me daarin niet te limiteren. Ik dacht nog bij mezelf, alle oude gesprekken die ik nog had staan, wat zou ik ermee doen? Ik denk, er zit er gewoon waarde in, ook voor iemand anders. Dus ik ga ze gewoon publiceren. De komende tijd ga ik me zeker verbeteren in de podcast. Dus heb je ook feedback? Vond je een bepaald onderwerp prettig? Wil je er wat ergens mee over horen? Laat het mij vooral weten, het doet me erg goed. Ik ben hier ook om waarde te leveren aan jou. Tuurlijk, ik doe het voor mezelf. Ik deel mijn verhaal, ik vind het super tof. Het is ook super fijn om te weten wanneer iemand er een bepaalde waarde aan heeft. Met die feedback weet ik, weet je, dit is iets of dit is niets. Ik vergelijk het wel eens van, weet je, ik schilder voor mezelf. Vind het heel tof om mezelf te schilderen. Ik neem het op. Maar stel voor dat iemand er eens zoiets heeft van, die schilderij die je daar hebt gemaakt, ik wil daar best wel voor betalen. Dan ben ik wel benieuwd. Wat dat betekent dat ik dus meer tijd kan spenderen aan datgene wat ik leuk vind om te doen. En ik maak er blijkbaar mensen blij mee. Maak er helemaal niemand blij mee, dan ontvolgen, dan moet je niet kijken. Dit is iets wat ik wel blijf doen, want ik blijf mijn nieuwsgierigheid volgen. Ik blijf met mensen in gesprek gaan. Maar het is altijd tof om te weten hoe het is. In dit gesprek ben ik in gesprek gegaan met Kaycee Polite, een klinische maatschappelijke werkster met een specialisatie in het geven van sekstherapie. Hoe waren we met elkaar in contact gekomen? Een tijdje op Instagram. Begon gewoon mensen te volgen die content delen, die spraken over bepaalde erotische onderwerpen, bepaalde onderwerpen aankaarten vanuit andere perspectieven. En ik begon aan te volgen en zo raakten we met elkaar in contact. En ik stuurde aan DM, ik zeg het lijkt me super tof om een keer met je gesprek te gaan. Hebben we eerder een Zoom gesprek gehad en toen had ik voorgesteld van zou je het tof vinden om samen met een aflevering op te nemen. En zo gezegd, zo gedaan. Dus het was een super tof gesprek. Het inspireerde mij enorm. Het was super lachen. Echt een prachtige vrouw. Gewoon de ogen en de lach. Gewoon beautiful spirit of energy. Maar zoals de gezegde luidt, achter de grootste lach schuilt ook het meeste pijn. Niet het pijn wat misschien hedendaags is, maar ervaring, inzichten. En ik merk dat op dit moment, dat is hetgeen waar ik het meest naartoe neig, is, weet je, hoe ben je gekomen waar je nu staat? Wat is jouw verhaal? Wat is jouw ervaring? En ook duiken in de juicy details. Nu tot op heden ben ik nog niet ingedoken in de details. Maar ik denk wel dat dat gaat komen in seizoen 3, waar ik gewoon mensen gestructureerd vragen ga stellen. Vragen naar waar hun mindset was. Misschien ergens een storytell. Weet je, hoe is mijn reis bijvoorbeeld begonnen? Een aantal mensen hebben er ook vragen gesteld van, hoe ben jij daarmee in aanraking gekomen? Dus ja, stories man, we got stories to tell man. Geniet ervan, hier komt het. Ik wil graag wat je ervan vindt. Ksjoe.
I am Kaycee Polite, a clinical social worker who specializes in sex therapy. Well, I think I'm trying to help people feel empowered and understand that everything that they see in the media is not accurate. And at the same time, validating any anxiety or angst that people have about it, so that they can kind of feel that and then choose to decide what they want to do, which should not include buying up a bunch of toilet paper.
True. It's great. It's crazy how the label of our professions or the things that we talk about change now for the topic. It's still the same energy behind it. It's still the same. Hey, true. Whatever comes at you, look at it rational. Consult people. Also become aware that you're human and you will have certain reflexes, conditioned reflexes, and there's no need to be ashamed of them or to hide them. For example, me, I was stressing about, don't think too much about it. But there comes a certain moment, it was like, I see enough signals. I need to go do my research. So I went, I dive in, I followed my first indication when I saw a post about Tim Ferriss. I was like, if that guy posted something, let me read. Okay. He interviewed a gentleman, I forgot his name, I think Kyler Cohen. Mm-hmm. And the way how they spoke about it, because I usually filter through information, but I never looked at it with a conscious eye. I was like, I'm able to filter information. I was listening it, and they were not hyping it. They were just giving game. They were just telling it, hey, I follow these kind of people. Just go follow my handle. They didn't spread it like, you need to go do this. But like, hey, right. Stay in your lane. Do you? This is what I've been doing all my life. And you do with it what you want to do with it. And that's where the realization came from. So keep your body healthy. Keep doing you. And I was like, I'm going to talk to Kaycee and see what energy comes up. You're just confirming the energy. It's like, it's the same kind of response, the same kind of thing.
Yes. Because we do need to be thinking about our bodies in general, right? Like, to me, why don't we use this as a reminder? Like, we shouldn't have to remind each other to wash our hands.
Yeah, crazy.
Right? But like, it's turning into this thing, like, don't forget to wash your hands. But also, it's bringing to awareness for me about our cells. Like, how are you taking care of your cells? Like, what are you eating? Is your body more alkaline? Is it not? Like, could the virus live in your body? How long? And that's
stress,
up to you.
How stress plays a factor. Now mortality is a fact. We all gonna die someday. But how do you deal with something that comes close? I have in my mind the moment that my grandparents got the news. Not the news. They were actually living in a war. Man, you just have to pack your stuff and travel to another country. You don't speak the country. We have a luxurious problem, man. It's die in the hospital. What? No, what is that the worst thing that can happen? Yeah.
Right.
What about jumping on a boat with 500 other people and not knowing if you're going to survive or not a second?
Right. Talk about hysteria. That's hysteria.
That's some crazy shit, man.
That's a good point. Point. Yeah. So how's your weekend been, though? Pretty good?
My weekend was great, man. Yeah, really, really balanced out. The thing is, I teach at school and I take care of elderly. So I've both professions where I'm in contact with the kids. Sides. Yeah.
Okay.
Both. So the school stuff got canceled today. I just heard about it because the Dutch government, they took action well too late. And that's what people need to learn also about, is that some government, because if everybody's going to get sick, so how can we best use this news to our advantage? And people need to learn how to poke against it. There are parties that are using this for their own agenda. Hey, that's the game.
For sure.
It what keeps the world moving. Yeah. We all part of it. So, it was great. I went, all the public marketplaces closed down. So now
Yeah.
I had to get my fresh fruits and legumes from the Arabic people. They have it in stock, man. They've been making their money. We're like, yeah.
Really? They're like supply and demand.
Yes,
Yeah.
man, love it. So I eat that, yeah, chill, man. Well, went to walk outside, and I was like, okay, today came the realization, okay, time to dedicate my energy and time. And when your mind is open, it just flows through you, man.
It does. It's amazing. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So do you follow a vegan diet?
I don't necessarily put a label on, but since I'm talking
Okay.
to you, I don't eat meat and fish. The
Okay.
only dairy product that I eat is ghee from the Ayurvedic perspective.
Yeah.
The last thing that I gave up was goat cheese because I noticed having pimples on my face, but and I don't feel the necessity, and that's also good to mention for people that listen to the podcast. For me, the most important thing is not to feel a certain type of need that I'm distancing myself from meat, but I still have cravings. What I explain to people is I stopped eating the meat because I sensed the benefits. I sense also the withdrawal. Just give an example, the after dinner dip. It's so grained in ourselves when you get a dip after dinner, it's normal. And I fell into the trap. I know I'm highly energized. And there was a moment that I started eating meat again. I got into the after dinner dip. I was like, no, dude, you didn't used to feel like this.
You
And
didn't?
that's how I got back on meat. And so what I follow I follow plant-based diet consciously.
Okay.
I don't judge other people. What I do tell me is just do your own research, check what's
Right.
best for you. And I think also what brings to our attention is with this coronavirus, the COVID, is where do you get your resource from? Are you waiting for people to feed you resources?
Right.
So, or are you going to look up for yourself? And of course, you have a vast load of information, but just like riding a bike, you will get better at filtering. And as long as you don't see one article and see it as the truth, just make your own damn assumption of a story and see what you can do from the position you're at.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Yeah, I like that. Okay.
So what have you been doing with your weekend?
So I've been working. So I've had sessions yesterday and today, and I did do them by video. So here's the interesting thing. Like, even if I'm comfortable being out in the world, I have to appreciate the fact that everyone isn't going to feel that way. So I made the decision. Yeah, I made the decision like, you know what? I'm going to offer all my sessions for everybody that was scheduled to do it over video for their comfort level. And then we'll go from there. So I had sessions this morning and yesterday. They were fantastic and
beautiful.
Yeah. Otherwise, I've just been hanging out, relaxing. Yeah.
Oh, you're so beautiful, you.
Thank you.
Look at you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
it's nice to see all the positivity, man. Dope, man. And how did you shift? How did you shift your diet or your conditioning in your diet? I know. Were you raised the way you were raised? Did you read up on books? What was your development?
Good question. So I grew up with a chef in the house.
Oh,
okay.
Geez.
Yes. So my dad is a professional chef. My mother never had to cook a day in her life, ever, not even eggs. Right. So we grew up, I feel, very spoiled in the type of cuisine that we had. So I had an opportunity as a very young African-American female to have food from all nationalities, right? Because my father is Caucasian. He's my stepfather, so not my biological father, but he's Caucasian, raised on a farm. So his kind of worldview of food was very international. So I didn't grow up with like the typical soul food that a lot of my friends were eating, greens and, the basic kind of stuff. I was eating Mediterranean food that he cooked. I was eating all kinds of stuff, right? So
you could pronounce words at school. You could spell them. We're like foie gras. Kids get like FOU. Yeah, like, sorry.
Yes. Like, what did you have for dessert? Oh, I had baklava. What? Right? They're like, we had peach cobbler. What you talking about? Right? No. So that was interesting for me. So I got to grow up with very good food, not a lot of preservatives, not a lot of frozen stuff. And then as I evolved, I got to a place, literally, it wasn't even about something that I read. Something about red meat started to turn me off.
Okay.
just because, like, I can't even it was just like, I don't want that. I just don't want it. So I just followed that. Right.
Were
So
you
I was just
already on a certain conscious path? Were you already doing research on it? How did it cross your path?
I wasn't on not consciously. I wasn't on a conscious path.
Yeah, because we're always on a path. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe when I think about it, it was part of my path, but the food piece kind of came first.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You see what I mean? So then
it opens your eyes to more things. For okay, if this something was there more? Yeah.
Yes, and I think by eliminating certain things from my diet, my awareness of what I was putting into my body mentally, spiritually, physically, sexually became under a magnifying glass.
Did you continue on research, or did you went on a rampage of search?
So then I finally started doing some research. So how does meat really impact my body? What's happening? And it almost became an experiment. So when I actually stopped eating chicken and any white meat as well, and then eliminated dairy, that was only about 3 years ago. I kind of did it as a dare. Like, let me see what happens. So I'm supposed to not be as fatigued, sleep better, have clear skin, mental clarity.
Glowing,
let me see if this is true. Like, I was like, let me see if this is true. So there wasn't this lifelong commitment. It was more of an experiment.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And then through research and the more I did it, I felt different. And I got to a place when I turned 40 that I felt like I was reverse aging. I was 40. Like, oh, this is cool. Like, I feel so fucking young. Like, this is amazing. So then the journey just continued from there. Yeah.
Dope. How do you think that you handled the perceived an overload on information? How did you manage to filter that? Was it because you went in with the mindset of, hey, this is just an experimentation? Do you think that it helped because you didn't look at it as, okay, I'm going to change the lifestyle because it's better for the animals. I don't touch it. What are your takes on that? Especially for people that are listening and wanting to change something about their diet, but they perceive an overload on information, not having the time to dive into all that. So what do? Just ignore it. Especially now with the COVID, people are going to dive into the research. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, you know what? I was really frustrated, to be honest with you, with the amount of information available, because any perspective that you have, you can find research that supports it, and then you can find research that doesn't support it.
True.
So then I realized I'm driving the information that I'm being attracted to. So if I'm believing something to be a certain way, I'm going to gravitate towards the material that supports it for me so that I don't have any internal dissonance about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I really had to become objective and say, I need to step outside of myself, because if I don't, I'm not really going to learn both sides of the issue. I'm just going to support what I think is right. And that isn't where we evolve or grow. We need to see both sides of the argument.
I think
yeah, don't you agree? Like, it's important.
Of course. To add it into simple everyday stuff that people might encounter, you learn the most when you are irritated with a person. That's where the most growth lies. The things that pinch your ego. You read something like, that's not okay. Why isn't it okay? Do your research. So even if they can't see they have a thinking in the fallacy, just dive into it. If you think that's wrong, go prove it for yourself. And then your own balance, your own energy, where you stand will come forth on things that you need to be open of.
I completely agree. So I just dove in without expectation. And that helped me filter, to answer your question, that helped me filter the information, and also to just trust my instinct, right? Like, what resonated with me is what I had to go with.
A beautiful thing. What resonates with you? What you felt acting upon? Okay.
Yeah.
How did you manage? I can imagine you was reading, getting all this new information, all these new insights. How did you handle the way that you shared with other people? Did you felt a need? I need to talk about this. I need to share articles. How did you deal with that part?
Yeah, so that's a good question too, because when we learn new information, we get really excited, right? And if we feel like we have knowledge that can benefit other people, regardless of what stage they are on in their journey, we want to shout it from the rooftops. But recognizing that everyone's not in a place to receive it necessarily. So I wanted to be mindful about when are the moments when I can actually share that information with somebody versus coming off as judgmental. So if I'm talking to a friend that's a meat eater and I'm screaming to her, listen, these are the things you need to think about. And this is how long your body is digesting meat and you need to quit. Like, she's not going to receive that. Even though I'm coming from a place of love and compassion, she can't hear that. So I had to really be mindful about that and find the right opportunities to share information, but do it in a way that it inspires someone to do their own research to decide, is this something that I might want to consider? So I was just really mindful of that.
What do you think was a key thing in being mindful? I have my own answer, but I'm curious about yours. What was your thing to keep reminding yourself of, hey, being mindful? You have this conversation with a friend, and you're like, I could say much something, or what are the thought process that help you going from I need to tell you something, but from
right.
oh no, okay, it's good, I hear you, bless you on your path.
Yes. So along my journey, I have learned the power of slowing down, right? So
What do you mean by that?
Meaning we always have a second before we speak to process, even very quickly, the impact of our words. So by kind of slowing down my thought process, and when I'm communicating with someone, being mindful of the exchange of information, I was able to take that really precious second to see what would possibly happen. What's the recourse or the consequence of my next statement? And in that second, we can choose what we decide to do. But you know what ends up happening? People just talk. Like, they don't necessarily think about it. It's like you're just vomiting words. Mm-hmm. And that is dangerous.
They don't notice the split second. They don't notice how much we're being influenced on the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because once the words come out, you can't take them back. It's just like if you're arguing with someone, or even if you're expressing love or some other type of emotion, you can't get those words back. The person isn't going to forget them. Even if you apologize and you say something mean, you can't get them back. So we really have to be mindful about what we say to one another, because it can tear someone down.
It's a hard one also. How do you deal with people that are close to you that still trigger you in some kind of way? Because now you have the second to think about, well, when someone that's close to you that might hit on your triggers, that second is fractionated in a lot of parts, man.
It is. No, it's so true. No, it's so true. So sometimes I have to walk away. Like I have to.
With what attitude are you walking away? With acceptance? With dealing? What are you walking away with?
I'm walking away with, I need to protect you and me from what might come out my mouth. Right? Like, I'm protecting us.
Because you're not ready to deliver the message the way the person might perceive, or it's not the moment, and it still triggers you. So you need something to work on.
Yes, because I don't want to respond out of a place of emotion, because that is not always the best place. We're not grounded.
Any emotions?
Even if the emotion is even if the emotion is positive, right?
Right.
So even if someone is...
It's still colored. There's still emotion behind it.
It is. It's charged.
Charged, yeah.
Right?
And it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, it's charged.
It's charged. Yeah,
like
and you have to make sure you think about it. Yeah, because you can be having a lustful moment with someone.
What does lustful mean?
Well, what does lustful mean? So here's the thing. I think people confuse lust with strong liking and love, right? So there is this immense, I'm going to use the word charged again, charged emotion of magnetism to something that you want. and you feel like you can't get enough of it. To me, that's lust, right? It's something where when you see it, it's like wearing almost rose-colored glasses. So you can't see some of the imperfections,
because of the
flaws,
lust.
because of the lust.
Because of the charged energy behind it, you're seeing already the thing colored. And even if you're
Absolutely.
coming from love, it's still colored, still feel okay again.
Yeah, so you have to give yourself a moment to like feel, settle in and process it so that you don't get yourself in a situation that wasn't quite the situation you wanted to be in. Or maybe even telling someone you love them. You may not really love them, but you think you do in that moment because the charge of the lust is so intense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a lot to learn about that part. I can get charged a lot of times, and the way how I process it right now is instead of saying, it's just asking questions, but still the questions are charged, making the person think about their statements, even if it's a sensitive subject. For example, they might say, yeah, my boyfriend always puts me down. I'm like, is he putting you down, or are you letting him put you down? Is there some kind of trigger? So
you're asking leading questions.
Yeah. And I know that I'm dealing with it, still being my authentic self.
Yeah,
but I'm still, I had this conversation yesterday. I still analyze backwards for, okay, it was still charged. And as we spoke, I was like, okay, there's still you're trying to grasp that thought. It's like, you're still there. And I have no idea how to make it. I haven't gained insight it yet totally in make it snap away and just being fully in compassion, just his hearing out and just accepting what the person is saying. I haven't grasped it yet.
Well, you know what I like about you asking the question is you're trying to help the other person arrive at the conclusion on their own.
Yeah. But
right?
it can be charged because you can ask your question on a certain level of awareness. They might not be at yet, skipping a few steps.
Right, that's true. Yes. So what would it mean for you to fully be present in the moment and be an active listener without trying to fix it for them or help them see it differently?
What helped for me, I think something that happened yesterday, and the energy of the conversation stayed normal. It was really intense, but I asked everybody at the table, is it still okay? Everyone's okay. Also the woman telling us, okay, that was for me. Check my, okay, the energy is still okay. So my energy was still intense, but she said a word and I wanted to know, I was really following my own curiosity. What is the intention? What is the emotion behind the word? Is the word, she was having a situation for, hey, I find it, I was disappointed with my ex-boyfriend. I was like, okay, were you disappointed because your expectation, or is it just disappointed like everyday life, we're still humans and it's too bad. And I was asking a series of questions and I was like, okay, I now know the color of your word. So I understand it and now we can continue further. So I think that was I was asking a question just to understand it better, just from where she stands, instead of me asking questions for, hey, maybe it is still some trigger you want to look at. Although I lead it, that's how I started. I ended different day and I felt good. I was like, okay, cool.
So how did you perceive how she received this line of questioning? Like, did she struggle? Was she frustrated? Did she have a hard time?
Very well spoken, and she was just answering all my questions. She didn't. She was also really patient with me. I loved that. She was creating a safe space with me, so I was experiencing that I could be myself.
Good.
I even stated I was coming from a place of love, so it was a really safe space for me just to express. Even though she never saw me, I never saw her. We were just in a group setting. And she received. She explained. I was like, okay. And I was really feeling myself. Am I saying this now to tell her something? I'm curious. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Every time I was just checking in with myself, and it was a fast game. It was a fast game, but I like those. Okay. That's good. I needed to understand where the person stands, and I didn't feel any judgment afterwards. But I started with leading questions, and it's a delicate thing. It
is a delicate thing, but you're right. I mean, you are coming from a place of love. So in any type of communication that we have, we do have to check what our intentions are. If we have the right intentions, and we might, goof up a little bit in our line of questioning, I think that that's okay, as long as we're coming from a good place, because we learn as we go, right? Like it sounds like you have a lot of good takeaways from that exchange.
Yeah, every time. I love it. So yeah, okay, man. Love the conversation. Now I want to get to the second part, man. I haven't asked, man, who are you and what you do, man? We were addressing the current issues about the corona. I think that's what the people first want to tune into. But you have a story, Kaycee, man. What's your story besides of the conscious experimenting on yourself? You're a very, very sensual woman, and I think if you might say, do you feel that you were caged? Did you cage your sensuality? Or let me put it, that's not something we do consciously, but do you think that with the conditioning, you cage your sensuality?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
How did it look back then? How does it look right now?
Good question. Yeah, no, I love this. So I like that you said caged. And the reason I say that is because
the eyes never lie.
The eyes never lie. I like it because when you picture a cage, right, it's not completely sealed off, right? So there's room for energy and air to flow through the cage. Are you following me?
Of course. Very vividly.
Okay. So when we have a caged mindset, right, or closed mindset, we are still being kind of challenged and exposed to the opposite of that limited thinking, thus the airflow, right, that can go through this cage. Now, what we do with it to break out of the cage is up to us, because we actually have the key. But when we're in a cage, we feel like we can't get out. So I want to use that to set the stage, because as a young woman growing up and understanding my own sense of sexuality, and more so I'm going to say sensuality, I didn't realize that I actually had the key to break out of the limited mindset that was socially put on me. So for a period of time, I believed I was powerless. So I remember when I was in college and I was reflecting one day about how flirtatious I was. And so I was struggling with this idea of like, why am I so flirtatious? Like, I don't understand, how does one become comfortable with that, right? So I had a conversation with my mom about it. In that conversation, she shared with me kind of her journey with relationships. And I learned that she kind of naturally was confident sensually and had this ability to flirt. So then my mind was like, oh, I get it from my mom, right? Sometimes when we do that, we don't take ownership of something. Like we need to connect it to something, which is not necessarily true. But in that moment of being 19, 20 years old, I needed to connect it to something.
You should stepping.
Yeah. So I use that to say, okay, it's okay that I'm like this, right? But the messages about a woman who's flirtatious are very negative, right? They're loose. They're, willing to put themselves out there. They're not saving themselves for their future husband. There's all these things that go with that.
There wasn't anything much to gain publicly for owning that part of you. It's a hidden power.
Exactly. Oh, that's good. I like how you said that. It is a hidden power. So then my journey became, how do I harness that power, own it, accept it, and not just accept it, but appreciate it?
But what made you think about that part? Because still it's a difficult thing when you start accepting, hey, I'm flirtatious. There's this negative connotation with it. So still you took the time, okay, there is something, I want to think about it. Even though it might be perceived differently. Were you already conscious that it might held a hidden power, or what was that process? Because from person that is now listening and recognizes herself in your story, for, hey, I also flirt a lot, but it's something I repress. What is that? What might be their stepping stone? Because you had your mom as a stepping stone. but others
Yeah,
might not have.
that's true. So I think at the time I also did a lot of journaling. So being able to process my thoughts about it on paper, right? To kind of sit with things, because in this fast-paced world we live in, we don't take time to sit with our thoughts,
So taking the
right?
time to sit with your thoughts, any thoughts, might be flirtatious, might be irritation, angriness, dreams.
Any,
Take the time to sit who you are and face it.
yes, because we have to care about how we feel. So one of the things that I connected with my kind of sensuality and joy of kind of flirting and having that exchange with people, I recognized that it was something that fueled me. So
Mhm.
through that process, I had to accept that if something is fueling me and helping me feel connected with people, how could that be negative?
Did you were you afraid, or did scary thoughts pass your mind when you accepted from, hey, I love to flirt, I get fueled with it, with the conditioning, like, but does it mean that I want sex? Do I need a man? Did those thoughts pop up?
Yes, I would say they did pop up as it relates to does flirting is flirting a gateway to sexual activity or intimacy, right? But once I started to harness control over it, I realized it's my narrative. So
It
it
doesn't be linked with the sexual part. You choose to do with it, but this is your start. I like to open
exactly.
up doors without getting into the car. What you think? I like open up doors, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to drive the
And
car.
right. And I get to choose that, right? Just
Yeah.
like how people respond to me being flirtatious, that's their choice,
Hmm.
how they respond to me. So understanding that there was some power play that I enjoyed, but ultimately the other person had control of their own response. I wasn't putting something on them that they didn't necessarily want to have. They got to choose that. So
I think you're at a stage right now that even if you notice that change in a person, you're able to correct them with a friendly smile and just continue the conversation, because you know how you might be perceived, but you also know you don't need to take it as an offense.
yes.
How
And
did
so
you
what I would
how did you manage that part, learning that stage?
no, let me tell you this. So I would say in my early 20s, I was kind of immature about it, right?
Hmm.
So I didn't necessarily discern who I chose to flirt with.
What
Now,
discern means? You conscious of it?
yes. So being aware of who I would choose to have a flirtatious engagement with,
Hmm.
where now it is a lot more purposeful.
Yeah.
So I can't just flirt with anybody, regardless of what I think about them or if I find them attractive or mentally stimulating or whatever the case may be. Because of my profession as a sex therapist,
Hmm.
I have to be mindful of that because I also don't want to take advantage of someone who's in a vulnerable place.
Yeah,
Like
that
I'm
might.
very
Mhm.
aware of that as well. And I just mean regular, but not people that are my clients. Of course, that is strictly a professional therapist-client relationship. But outside of that, uh, I'm more mature about how I make those choices.
Oh,
And I
oh.
feel like that's just over experience, over time. Yeah.
How did your husband dealt with your flirty side?
So that's a good question because we
Before your
actually met.
awakening and after awakening? Because I think he noticed you from who you are from the beginning. Just he was like, okay, you do
Yes.
you, but I see you.
Yes, that's exactly right. So we met in when I was in college.
Mhm.
So he kind of got to see the immature, flirtatious self. So we dated my freshman year of college, and then I ended the relationship our sophomore year of college. So he got to see that part. Well, fast forward 15, 16 years later, we got back together
Wow.
and at that point decided to pursue a relationship, and then we got married 8 years ago. So he has seen the immature flirtatious Kaycee to now the grown-ass woman, mature professional, and he's always understood that that's a part of who I am. So he's not insecure about that, and then of course I'm extremely respectful about that as well. So it's kind of like a joke. in our house. It's just kind of this thing. Like that's Kaycee. That's part of who she is. She's a highly sensual individual. And he loves me for who I am. So
when was the moment that you, how do I frame this question, that you accepted that he already saw you for who you is and what the things that you like, and he was okay with it? I think that what I assume that there must have been a part where you felt relieved with him giving you a certain type of acknowledgement from, hey, which I see you and be you and develop yourself more.
So through ongoing conversation about it, the first step is accepting it within myself and not feeling like I need to apologize for who I am. Provided a safe place for he and I to talk about it. So I didn't feel like I needed to justify who I was. It was more of a conversation of acceptance and appreciation for that piece of it. So I like to be able to kind of spark sensuality within another individual. And I didn't know that that's what I was doing until I got older. But I recognize that this sexual self, that persona that we all have, is often underdeveloped and not exposed. So people don't have a problem talking about their profession or their hobbies or their family, right? Like all these other things. But then this very large aspect of who they are as a sexual being, oh yeah, no, that never comes up in conversation, right? And they're uncomfortable with it. So a part of me is like, I want to poke the bear a little bit, right? I want to.
What do you think that makes people feel uncomfortable talking about it? What has been your experience?
I think the biggest thing is being judged. So if they feel like their sexual and sensual identity goes against any particular values or religious beliefs or any type of cultural prescripted identity, they won't belong. They won't be accepted within their community. So they just either act like it's not there, or in the privacy of their own space, kind of think about it and explore it. But when they're out for other people to see, they don't want to talk about it. Yeah, I find fear of being judged.
Yeah, I think this fear of judgment is holds a root of a lot of so-called evils in this world. That's just not limited by sexual erotic expression.
Absolutely.
Because it should be just normal to talk about. As long as it adds value to the conversation, and I think the more people have these conversations, more people will stand up and just have it. And yesterday, I also had another interesting conversation with a friend, and I was like, okay, you're 2 years in with your woman. How do you two deal with looking in regards to other women? He was like, man, I never asked her. I was like, okay, but how do you feel about it that you never ask her? He said, I just realized that it's a certain type of insecurity. We just don't talk about it. And he admitted that he was curious about her thoughts in regards with another man. It's like, okay, sometimes we picture to have a certain type of conversation with a certain end in mind, a certain goal, but the goal is just to have a conversation. Just opening up doesn't mean that you will scream from Instagram, I can look at booties right now, but just another way of relating with each other, another intimacy with someone that you choose to spend your time with. Yeah, man, it holds a lot of power in it, man.
Well, I like that you brought that up, because I think in the context of relationships, there's this sense of ownership of the person that you're in the relationship with. And that mindset because of, yes?
I think the feed got cut off when you start from relationship.
Oh, okay. So in the context of relationships, yes, there's a sense of ownership. that happens between two individuals. And because of that, we restrict these really fruitful conversations because of insecurities, and this idea that, which is so crazy to me, if you're in a monogamous relationship with someone, there is almost this expectation that you won't find anyone else attractive.
Crazy.
What? That's insane. But yet, just a minute before you committed to that relationship, you had no problem finding other people attractive. So it's like a faucet that just turns on and off. No, it doesn't work like that. But we make ourselves think that it does. So then if we're in a monogamous relationship and we find someone else attractive, then we start to experience guilt and shame about it. Now that's insane, right? Like, let's be honest. We don't do that with our food. Like, we can enjoy a meal, and just because we see another delicious dish over there, does that mean, oh, we shouldn't like that? Oh, I should only like the meal in front of me, and that's it.
Well, I would take it even broader with the things that are happening in the world. Some don't even have a meal. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy your own meal, or just even have a sense of responsibility. But it doesn't mean you have to act on it. You can feel for someone that doesn't feel, but do you have the means? Are you able to? Just to give an example, I saw recently an interview with King Noir, and he were explaining that he is polyamorous and his girlfriend is more of a swinger. And they asked him, do you have a girlfriend right now? And he explained that his current situation, at his time that he's devoting to his family, doesn't allow time for other people. So he's embracing that part of him, but still he has his own priorities. So same thing with attractiveness. You can find another person attractive. You don't need to fight the feeling. You don't need to feel guilty, but you have your priorities. You choose to be what you meant, or you choose to discuss. It depends on your own priorities.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I heard that same interview.
Yeah, it was a really dope interview.
Oh, it was so good. It's so good. And I love how his I
hope to interview him also one time, and he's I love it.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he said that his wife is like
occasional,
sexually opportunist.
Yeah, it's sexually opportunist.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
I was like, oh, that's a great description. Yeah, and that's interesting too. Like, they are able to show that their perspectives of it aren't the same, but they can coexist in the relationship with those different views, and it works well for them. Like, I just think it's phenomenal.
That's something in my past relationship, I didn't have the right words. I didn't have the right experience to recognize that I needed to create a safe space for me in my past romantic relationship to be able to talk about these certain things. And it was something I always tried to convey to her. I was like, even if I'm open to dating multiple women, I know my priorities. I know what to choose, and you're not holding me back of me choose. Me being with you is not you holding me back. I choose to be with you and to engage in the conversation that we're having. But she couldn't get the idea. But Adil, you have said it out loud that you're open for multiple women. So meaning, if I'm with you, I support that idea. I was like, yeah, but how do you feel right now about me? I'm still here with you. I'm not doing anything that disturbs you. We discuss about things, and but she came to the realization how things might be. And when you're open for things, it's not that you decide something today, it happens tomorrow. You work, you talk, you create a safe space. What doesn't? And no relationship is the same. It's
not, no. And in doing that, by you expressing that you were there with her in that moment, if you chose to date another woman, it doesn't minimize how you feel about her. Right? But I think we haven't been socialized that way. It's like you have to choose, and if you choose something else, that means you like that other thing better. There's this hierarchy, but that also says that there's a limit on our ability to love and care for other people, and I just don't believe that's true.
No, me neither. I think what I also tell to people is just look at the things that you want to manifest in your life and just embrace whatever comes to your path. And relationship might be a part of it, but might be not. So it's this social pressure, like you have to have kids, you have to have a husband or a wife, and that's what success means. But yesterday I was on a great conversation with a person, and I asked about her, what you're passionate about, and she was like, I don't know what I'm passionate about. And I was like, what you mean? She's like, yeah, I don't have any particular hobbies and things to do. And I was like, but if that's not your thing, that's not your thing. And as the
Right.
conversation progressed, she was actually passionate about life. So I re-asked the question. I said, so what you're passionate about? And she said, about life. I said, well, we found it. You didn't have the answer because you kept comparing yourself to what
Yes.
people normally answer the question with. But for you, if it's nothing like that, it's you. That's your life. You're passionate about your own life. It's good. It's okay when things going good.
Yes, that's
So
right.
you don't need to be in roller coaster. Like, I'm alive. How do you know? Well, I get these things in my tummy and I got flipped upside down. I'm
Right.
living.
Yeah, that's true. So it seems like from this conversation that you consciously seek out these stimulating conversations with people. Is that intentional?
If it's intentional, I balance within when people make certain statements. I just question the statement. I was like, but okay, what's the thought behind it? Just like what I mentioned now, I need to know the color behind a certain statement. What I do is certain conversation on the internet I seek out. There's this guy that I follow on YouTube, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and his conversation I follow because they stimulate me intellectually to think about things, to just see thoughts and emotion for what it is, and it breaks down the conditioning, and that helps me with the everyday conversation and placing my own thoughts in a certain way. For example, I have no problem in connecting with you and just asking questions because of the work that I've been doing, and with you that you can find each other at the same place.
Yeah.
So seek out conversation. I don't know, man. It's just questioning things and see what happens inside of me. Just like when you asked the first time, Fadil, what's your intention? That was the first time I was speaking about loud, but as I speak, I was thinking, I was like, interesting. What is it?
I see. So was there a time in your life where it was harder for you to question things or ask people questions?
Yeah, when I was in a toxic relationship where I was doubting my own powers. I always had this ability to see things, to notice things, but I didn't learn how to deal with them. I was always socially awkward. So when I was in this toxic relationship, I learned a lot from it, but it went on too long for me to learn lessons to see hey, if I see something, it's right. So what happened when I noticed it's created a certain mini monster of like, okay, I know I can see things. Nobody can tell you something, but it was a short period. I was like, okay, Adil, you still have certain feelings, bitter feelings, go deal with that. So it was immediately a feedback for, you're bitter about it. Go deal with that first. You learned your lesson. That was your path. Now you know. So don't doubt again and open for the next lesson.
So how did you get to a place where you could release yourself from that toxic relationship? Because toxic relationships really anchor you in. Like they get you to not know who you are to the point where I think, like you said, usually people are in them too long.
I think it was part of several things. Relationship. What I tell people is when you have a certain energy ball within inside you, a certain seed, it manifests itself in various ways. If you have a certain problem in your relationship, but it has a certain root cause, that root cause will pop up in your work. It might seem as two different situations, but it's still the same thing. So I think I realized that what was inside of me was a lack of self-worth, self-knowledge, and not doubting yourself and wanting to make mistakes, because it manifests itself in a toxic relationship. It manifests itself not speaking up at work. It manifests itself when I was feeling hurt, not speaking up. So it was just an conscious involvement from, okay, Adil, you're good as you are. You don't know it all, but just embrace who you are, where you're at, and start working from there. Just like this conversation, like, I love this. I'm having a conversation with a beautiful woman. I'm following my own curiosity. I'm like, look at this, man, providing joy for whoever is looking at it. But at this moment, I'm having fun.
Awesome. I am too. Okay, now listen, there's something that you said that really stood out to me that I have to explore if you are okay with it.
Of course. Let it come true.
Okay, so you had mentioned being socially awkward.
Yeah.
did you give yourself that distinction, or was that something other people gave you?
I gave myself the distinction also that other people were always, this one is weird, this one's weird. But because it's just like the mountain that hit Titanic. If you only see the tip, you don't think it's a mountain because you don't fully express. Now that I'm fully expressing myself, people that call me weird are those that just want to see one tip of it. But people that know me fully understand, and even if they don't agree with everything that I say, they know, okay, Adilson is expressing himself. So I gave that label when I wasn't fully able to express myself, just saying half things, and not have chosen my environment yet, where people can see me for who I am and give me feedback, honest feedback. I have a certain select of people. If they tell me something, I will think about it because I let them in. I will really consider it because I let them in. And I know they come from a place of truth, of love, and so socially awkward, not able to fully express yourself and not fully able to embrace who I am, and a lack of self-knowledge and self-worth.
Okay. So at this time of your life, what distinctions do you give yourself?
When I'm in a conversation where people haven't met me yet, but even within everyday conversations, I tend to name out the perception it might have if I'm not fully aware where the person is at with their awareness. They might just give me a nudge, hey, Adil, just fully express yourself. And I take that for an answer, and I will just notice how they react to me if it's okay. For example, the example that I gave with the conversation I had yesterday, the woman, never met her, but she gave me a nod, hey, I'm okay. She was a well-spoken woman. I didn't feel any emotions coming up besides the emotion of the conversation, but it was not directed towards me from, hey, stop asking me a question.
Right.
She was holding space for me just to express, and we were having this back and forth, and it was a beautiful conversation.
That's
but I only mentioned the bonus, and she nodded. This was my part again, to accept it, even though I didn't see it on her face. I had to accept it. Okay, accept what she's saying and continue, and you will see. Just jump. Don't be afraid to make the mistake.
Yes. Okay. I got it. Because sometimes people who are socially awkward have a hard time reading social cues. But I don't get that sense from you. Like, I get a sense that you do that well.
Well, you just mentioned something that triggered me. Last time I went on a date. Beautiful, beautiful woman. But my ego was seeing a beautiful woman. And what happened, I already knew there was not going to be any conversation. And at that one moment we were eating repeat, I was like, okay, stop this. What is this? Because I can't take this anymore. I was playing a role, not consciously. Because I wasn't confronting much being in a situation where I dated again. It was a mutual friend that set us up. And I don't have these kind of encounters. So I was put into one, and I got to see another side of me that's a little bit impatient, that wants to know where he's at. And she was like, relax, just let it go. But I already had that lesson. I just need to not engage again with her. It was just again a confirmation, me just following my dick. I say, oh, beautiful woman, man. Okay, just checking, and So every time. I was there was still that part. That was I think doubting, I need to date, and instead of just focusing on my own stuff. Because the conversation just needs to roll, man, in my life. And from there on we can vibe. It was really less confirmation that I needed. I think many more situations will come, but they won't anchored really in.
So did you date her anymore after that encounter?
No.
Yeah.
It just vanished.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, that's a good example, though, that you noticed that it was really more ego-driven. Like, that was the side of you that was kind of dictating your behavior.
Yeah. And then blurted out from, hey, Adil, what are you doing, man?
Right. See, you didn't take that second to think about what you were getting ready to say, right?
And where it's coming from. If I know that where the thoughts pop up, like, Adil, if this thought is popping up, that means you know what it means, man. Step up.
Yes. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay. So you had mentioned to me before that you're interested in creating a safe place for people of color to have kind of sexual play and experiences. What does that look like? Like, how do you plan on, what are you going to do?
Well, beforehand, in the Afro community that's highly charged of passionate and sensual energy, one thing that I want to make clear is it's not about the sex. It's far, far from it. If you want to go to a sex party, go. But that's not where my encounters go. My encounters around conversation. And what are the taboos? Because what I'm experiencing in the Afro community in regards, in comparison with the Caucasian community, the Dutch community, is the Dutch people that go to these parties and encounters, they just need to know, okay, who's partying, who's the DJ, and they just do. It is naturally in their culture to be open-minded, explorative. In the Afro community, there's a lot of guilt, shaming, a lot of conditioning, even worse than what I call quote-unquote society. So what I've noticed in this since the last time we talked, the need is really around community building and addressing every taboo one by one and creating a space for people. Oh, sorry, my phone's going. Creating a space for people to have those conversations. How she dealt with certain things and just exploring different stories. Last week I had a friend of mine, very well-spoken friend, and the podcast was very wide and well received because there were just two black men having a conversation about their erotic experiences, but people could relate. We really had a positive feedback, and I was like,
that's great.
That is where my energy needs to go, just exposing, following my own curiosity. Something that holds people also back that I've noticed when I invite them on the podcast initially, but now I changed the narrative, is they think they have to speak about their experiences in detail, like what they have done within the bedroom. Like, no, it's not about it. It's about your insights, your opinion, how you have dealt with things, your insights. And so really, I'm shifting the focus on getting people together around live podcasts. Initially, the first phase with people will be unstructured, like these conversations. But there will come a moment where I will invite you back and I will have a structured conversation with questions, but questions curated from the response that I get from people.
I love it.
Certain kind of taboos they might have on parties. And okay, how does Kaycee, the therapist, look at them? What are the things that you deal with? So that's my first phase. First phase is having conversation, feeling energies. Second phase will be live podcasts with dinners where people can have the after conversation during a dinner. I already have a location. Things are just being blessed because at my work we can have we use the place, and I think this beautiful moment of social distancing during the COVID Corona is a nice moment to write and publish a lot of stuff, having these Zoom conversations.
Yeah.
And man.
So do you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert or a combination?
I think if I can sense energies in the room. So if there's a balance with people that are open, I'm very well outspoken going forward. But if there's a lot of ego in the room, I won't really speak. I might open up and say something, but you won't hear me speak. If it doesn't add value, I won't speak. So I might come across as introvert. I'm just in my head. I'm not speaking. For example, meetings at work are really focusing on providing value, but most of the time just quiet, because I just hear ego going back and forth. I'm like, okay,
got it. Yeah.
What am I going to? I have a hard time really adding value to that part.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because in this dialogue, you are very open, and I know it's a space that you've created, so you're going to be more comfortable in it. But I wondered how you were outside of this in other settings.
People at work, and I got that as feedback from day one that I started. It's like they really experience me like a butterfly, but when in meetings they don't understand. And a colleague also opened up and said, Adil, I didn't came because I opened up. I was like, I hate meetings. That's why. And she was like, oh, that's why you never speak in meetings. I couldn't understand. You're always happy. And in meetings, you just have a straight face. And you only answer one question. Because I do follow. And when they ask something, I just add something. But it confuses people's mind, their perception.
Sure.
Like, interested? Is he listening? I'm listening. I'm listening to it. Oh, I'm listening to way more than you think.
Okay.
But yeah, it varies. It varies.
So it's a contrast of how you show up outside of the meeting.
For example, at a party, you will just, no matter what kind of party, I like to watch people. I just like to sit down and see. And I got that feedback also from a girlfriend. She went with a group to the erotic party, and she saw me there, and she was like, Adil, you were just as calm, and you were not, following all the opportunities. I was like, yeah, but that's not how I roll. I like to watch. I just like to see. I'm already enjoying. I like to see people enjoying their lives. Just give them a smile and continue.
And you don't feel the need to have to actively participate in that.
I've just followed the need wherever it goes. If the need comes up, that activity, then I will just stand up and be like, go.
Gotcha. So are you a dancer? Like, do you like to dance?
I do like to express myself crazy. I don't call myself a dancer. I just don't follow any patterns. I'm the guy that goes like, no. The funny thing is, a colleague of mine, when I was seriously dancing with her, she's like, Adil, I didn't know you knew how to dance. I was like, interesting. And several friends of mine told me that they didn't know I knew how to dance because I always act funny and goofy. I just want to make people laugh. But I never stood still with the point that people are really perceiving you that you really can't dance. So yeah, I act funny. I make you feel weird at the point. I would just spin and goof around. But if there's a Latin song, my hips is smooth as fuck.
You're moving.
Got it. But most of all just goofing around.
Just goofing around. Okay, that's good. That's funny. So I do want to, because of course, as a sex therapist, I want to ask you about your sensual journey. Do you feel you have a good grasp and understanding of who you are in your sensuality and how you express that to people that you are involved with? Or do you feel like you still have a lot of questions?
I don't have necessary questions, but I think because I don't seek it out. There's one thing that that got just reconfirmed again by my I don't like so much the word ex, but my latest relationship, and she said, Adilson, the moment that stick with me the most is the moment when you came home from a friend and you had new insights and you just grabbed me. I felt the passion. I wasn't really in the mood, but you turned me on by just feeling wanted. And what happened is that day I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she explained, like, if my husband comes home and I'm not in the mood and he just grabs me, that turns me on. I was like, that's rape. And she was like, no, that's my husband. It's not rape. And then I became aware of my trigger, like being afraid, coming across as I'm going to get you, I'm going to rape you. And she was like, Adil, why are you afraid of that? If your intentions are good,
right?
It's not like she's gonna see you as a rapist. She was just not in the mood, but you take it and she's gonna feel it. So I took that advice, I took the risk, I jumped, and she loved it, and she reconfirmed it again. She was like, Adil, I like to give hints because hints drive me crazy. I just want something direct.
It's straightforward.
Yeah, but I got confronted again by my impatientness, my wanting to know everything. That's my nature. So if the answer is just there before, just give me fucking answer. But I have to accept that's her way of rolling. So in that part, that's my part of sensuality where I'm still balancing out, puzzling, giving space for another person to express themselves, and also acting on what I see, acting on those cues that I'm able to pick up. So there's still a little, what do you call it, a certain sense of angst. Okay, I'm seeing what I'm seeing, but if I act, it's from the ego, but it's okay. So already there's a part of judgment inside of me. Letting go and being in flow. So that's my part of balancing. So that's not really on the external part of sensuality. No, it's more my internal part. When will I act? And I really choose I know this triggers something inside of me, so I really choose the people that it's worth having a conversation besides the sexual part.
Okay.
So for example, I might have the same things with it. I might pick up on cues and the same story goes into my mind. What am I learning? What am I doing? It stays in my head. Am I too much in my head? Should I just go into mode? Should I just speak my mind? It's my process that I'm learning learning to accept it and flow with it and just be in the moment, see what is and just learning. So, but what are your takes on it? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? I'm curious.
Well, I think from a male perspective, this sense of not wanting to come across too aggressive with a woman sexually, and like how you've internalized, like you created a story about that, right? And so because of that story, has limited how you interact with women sexually, just true. From that. Like, it's so powerful to me how we can have one thought or perspective and it can color all of our behavior sexually, where you may have had an amazing sexual experience that night with her, right? Because of the place where you were coming from.
Fantasize a lot about that moment.
I bet. That's awesome. Because you let yourself go.
Mm-hmm. So, that's that night,
Yeah, because sex really starts in our brains. Like it starts with our thoughts, and how our body responds to those thoughts is what kind of carries us through the physical expression of sensuality. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people listening are going to recognize that there are things that they are thinking about that aren't true, but just because they think them, it doesn't make it a belief. It doesn't make it fact. It's just a belief that they keep thinking. And because of that,
they don't express it. So the other person doesn't know you're walking with the belief, putting it away.
They don't. Yes.
I'm learning.
That dictates a lot.
I learned to express those beliefs and to pick up, for example, with her, to pick up on the social cues she's giving me. For example, I might drop a hint, not even consciously, but my energy is there, but I'm not aware of it. But she's like, I'm not so in the mood tonight. Then I must know, okay, cool, there's nothing here. So let's just keep it cool. This is how she talks.
Got it.
So even though we had a good night, I just want to express to people, it's not something I feel that I've mastered yet. I'm still, she is really, that one person in particular, really my play experimental ground to know, to learn, to give. And I also, for example, last time there was also a moment I was at her door. There was this thought. She had a book of mine. I had to pick up this book, Indigo Adults.
Oh.
Her house is on my way to my house when I come from work.
Okay.
The thought came up, Adil, go pick up the book because you're going to write an article based upon that book. And the second thought, no, it's late. She's home. She might think that you want to come at her home. I'm not going to give her that thought. So I was already internal conflicting. I was like, Adil, shit, you got to have to pick up the book, man, because you have that internal conflict of being afraid of being judged. So spontaneously, because that would happen, resolution, I just go in front of the house. I was like, hey, are you home? She said, yes. I said, I'm downstairs. And I came up and I was like, okay, I'm up. I'm not going to enter. I just stand at the door. So we stood in front of the door, she in her PJs. I'm fully dressed because I just came from the rain in my bike.
Right.
And we just talked at the door for 10 minutes. And I was like, yo, I wanted to ask if I could come in, but I don't want to come across this. Yeah. And she just kept staring at me. I was like, can I come in? She said, yes. So I was making up all those stories. I was like, step out of it. Just ask what you want.
Good.
But on the other side, I know that it also creates a narrative in her mind. But that's her story. That's her part. I need to learn that let go. So we had fun. Just a massage. I was really a liberating experiencing with me because we got to talk and we got to connect. And then she said, Adil, there's something I hate what you do, man. If you call you downstairs, man, you can call anytime you want. Just call like beforehand and you can call anytime. And that was again for me reassuring because she felt what I needed.
Yeah.
And so I can give her the respect and the thing that she needed. But it was a really interesting moment. The narrative I created in my head. And
yes, that's a good example. But we walk around with narratives all the time without even realizing.
Being aware of it. Because there I was aware of it, man. I was like,
Right. Yeah.
Crazy.
But if we were able to, again, there's that mindfulness, like the importance of being mindful about it. So that we can check ourselves to make sure that we don't allow that narrative to dictate what we do next, like how we behave when that narrative isn't based on any type of truth.
I think it also helps, and that's also what I'll tell a lot of people, is to have a certain goal, a certain North Star when you can fall back on, because that happened. But if she will be my North Star, it will devastate me. It will just keep in mind. But I have my own North Star. I'm on my path developing and we're learning. So that helps me keep in balance. That's also what I tell people is whatever goes on through your mind, just have something to do with yours. That doesn't matter what you do, it's yours. It keeps you in a certain type of balance.
It does. Yeah. It does. So if you could identify one word, like a theme
Mm-hmm.
for yourself in your journey for 2020, what would you say it is?
A theme.
A
The first thing
theme.
the first thing that pops up is focus.
Mm,
I also
focus.
decided, even though we're no longer seeing each other romantically, my best friend,
Mm-hmm.
I came to define what does it mean to date someone romantically. What does it mean for me? Because I still in that process.
Mm,
You still want to know each other. You still want to create fun moments. You still want to read each other. So instead of me focusing on building a certain type of relationship, just build the relationship that you want with that person. And
mm,
she would just help in the process in what that might manifest at. Just focus and
yeah.
just seeing, making the choice from, is it worth your time? What are you growing? Are you contributing to her? Are you adding value? Is she adding value to your life? And all those questions
Mhm.
answer yes. Of course, it's not perfect. Of course, you have still your own conditioning, but I'm learning from that. So focus with that, with my own thing that I'm creating. Focus on everything. Focus on the moment, the social cues, taking the time to let that sink in. Okay, what am I about
Yeah.
to say? Where does it come from? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
focus. It helps like for the moment. We walk this thing with the coronavirus coming up, focused. You're getting information, getting now the right information. You're seeing it on your feed and certain people that you respect. You dive into the information. Okay, folks, what's the next step? And I think it
Yeah.
guides me through everything like this now. This conversation we're open to receive because I'm focused. There's nothing distracting me.
Yeah.
2020 is about focus, man. I think it will. I will see a lot of benefits for the things that I'm creating right now next year. Yeah,
Mm.
but
Yeah. You're
but
laying the groundwork.
yeah, groundwork, but also just I'm good where I'm at, but I know where I'm building to. It's the long thing. I'm having fun every moment of it because now in the same energy, I know I'm not gonna watch a movie. I'm not gonna do it. I'm going to edit this afterwards because I'm excited. I have even another conversation within the next 45 minutes. Another a young brother Jordan on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just gonna engage in the conversation.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you have patience with yourself right
Patience,
now during
patience,
this
patience,
focus.
patience.
Yeah.
I indeed allow myself just to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be because the how you call that, for my own feeling, I passed the checkpoint. I have an income, I have my work,
Mm-hmm.
I have enough skills, I have enough confidence in myself to do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what happens tomorrow, my job can fall away. I know I can take care of myself. I know I
Mm-hmm.
can do my best. I know I won't stress in whatever situation might come. Of course, you will never know beforehand, but I know there's a certain groundwork laid down in my head that I'm able to fall back on. So I don't need to live in angst. I don't need to worry about stuff. I'm aware. I can
Yeah.
see, but I know in the end, all is well. That we've been going through worse things. Humanity has been through worse things, but still here we are.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you know, we do things for ourselves. But again, how do you define the self? Because what I'm doing for myself this moment is helping others because I've embraced my which so-called dark side, my light side, and just bring it into, hey, no, here it is,
Mm-hmm.
man, bring it to light. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
focus.
That's good. That makes me think about one of my favorite affirmations, and I say it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, everything is always working out for me. And I will say that repeatedly so that I can feel what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we could have a thought or a belief about something, but it stays here and it never makes it here. And in my journey, I'm realizing that I have to feel what I'm saying. It's
To make the
not,
connection from your head to your heart.
yeah,
Let
I
it sink in.
do. Yeah, it's more than just a thought, but like feel what that thought feels like, because that's where the energy force is. That's what's going to dictate how I move about the world and interact with people. So,
Exactly. That point especially. It dictates how you interact with people. Will you interact from fear or will you interact from love? Because the situation stays the
mhm,
same. It just
mhm.
depends what you do. Are you going to hoard toilet papers or are you going to check on your neighbor for, hey, do you have enough toilet papers? So it makes a
Mm,
difference.
good
Come on.
example, right? Is it all about me? Is it about let me? Yeah, I like that. So
And
it's like an
then
outward mindset versus an inward mindset.
I did think there's a balance because the me is okay. This what I'm doing is for me, but
Yeah.
we've taken a look. When you open up your eyes, you see the bar. Then choose consciously. Do you really need
Yeah.
all those toilet papers? Have you really thought about everything else? Have you done your research? Do you think it's necessary? Then see what you will choose, man, and relax, man.
Yeah, relax. Yeah, take it easy. I think so. I think the other thing too is we have to really stop making things more difficult for ourselves, right? So this morning while I was journaling, one of the things that I wrote about was being conscious about putting myself in situations or thought processes that made me feel like I was trudging through mud, right?
Can you give an
There's
example?
so much efforting. So, for example, I think worry is a good example of trudging through mud, right? Or resisting something that's naturally happening.
Okay,
So,
I get it.
right? And
It's
so
already
there's
happening, so
yeah, so
no
it's like
treat.
there's no need to do all this
Extra.
trudging. Yeah, no, like for what? You're using up so much energy and effort in something where it shouldn't be placed there.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about, like, consider when it's raining outside. If you took all your energy to talk about how you want to stop the rain, but you can't, right? Like, you can't stop it from raining. But like, to me, that's an example of what we often do in our personal life. Like, we waste time kind of trudging through these things that aren't in our control when we really need to put the focus on, well, what can we control? And let's just take this path of least resistance. Like, let's just flow with
and
it.
that's difficult because even I caught myself, thoughts just slide through my mind and I see them coming through, but I just don't identify. The thought comes up and I choose the liberty to focus on something else. Because it pops up. You can't ignore what's popping up. You can't fight it or put it away. Just replace the thought. What are you going to do?
That's right. But that takes practice.
Of course. Practice and insight, you know.
Yeah.
Patience with yourself, taking the time. It's okay. You're in that process.
Yeah, that's so true.
What at the moment do you feel has caught your interest? What are you most excited about?
I think I'm most excited about helping people connect to their own pleasure, and not just sexual pleasure, but their pleasurable experiences. So whether that is being in the moment and eating a meal and really fully experiencing the pleasure of the taste and the flavors, to experiencing and giving themselves permission to experience a sexual encounter with themselves or someone else where they can fully experience the pleasure without any shame or guilt. Like, I'm very passionate about that in this moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the message. And any last thoughts? Anything you want to manifest and bring into this world? Anything you want to speak about?
I think self-love is vital to our existence. And it comes from personal validation of who we are without looking for other people to give us that. Like, we really have to get to a place where we can love who we are despite how other people view us. Regardless if someone else tells you you're okay, you know that you are okay, right? Like, we rely on external things to define who we are and to validate who we are. And I think because of that, it bleeds into all areas of our life, and we don't carry ourselves with our head held high the way that we should. And we are kind of at the whim of emotions and not standing on a strong foundation of who we are as individuals. And it starts with love. It starts with loving who we are. Sometimes that's forgiving ourselves for things that we've done, for things that we've thought, for the negative self-talk that we've had about ourselves. we have to get back to a place of self-love. We can't give it if we don't even have it for ourselves. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Kay. Beautiful message.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up.
Sounds good.
I think that was it, man. Yeah, nice
I
conversation.
love it.
What do you think about it?
I think it was amazing. Yeah, like I've been smiling the whole way through.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, it felt really good. How did you feel about our conversation?
That it's going to cost me a ticket to fly to wherever you are and just to have that conversation and just connecting and vibing, man. That went through my mind. I was like, okay, this is going to cost me more.
This is going to cost me money.
that I will happily and willing to spend, because it's nice to connect with people. It's a certain also not recognition. Yeah, recognition. Okay, the way the conversation flows, like, okay, it's good where I'm at with my mind, the way we flow.
Yeah. It is reaffirming. I did take that.
That's the word.
That's how I felt as well. Yeah, it did that for me. Yeah. Also.
Reaffirming.
Yeah.
Love it. I think especially that part, that you see me and I see you. That's the feeling that I have.
I feel the same. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, besitos. Thank you again. Yes. Bless you.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
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 Too. Bye.